Okay, this is Geometry 1.4, a framework with definitions. So before we get started, I just want to remind you that we talked about the definition of geometry is that it is abstract and that it is a model. Well, I want to just review our undefined terms, point, line, and plane. So we can physically represent point, lines, and planes, but they are not really visible. Okay, that's the abstract part of what you've learned so far. The model of points, lines, planes is when we draw them, but they are abstract. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so a skeleton, when you think of a skeleton of something, you usually think of the human bones, or in this case, here's a picture of some dinosaur bones. This is the skeleton of a, let's see, your book calls it an Albertosaurus. It is a whole biological system was supported by organs, respiration, digestion, circulation, and it was a carnivore. And it was mostly from western North America, and it could get up to 30 feet. Okay, so this is just a picture that is taken in a natural history museum in Chicago. So I know one student will be super happy about that. But we're going to be talking about a different kind of skeleton. It's just the definition we're going to use is a supporting structure or framework. Okay, so we've already learned our undefined terms, point, line, and plane. They are the building blocks for the definitions, and that's what we're going to learn some definitions here in a little bit. And after we learn definitions, we are going to be able to do some postulates, or learn some postulates, and then formulate some theorems. Okay, so our first definition is collinear. Collinear points are points that lie on the same line. So points A, C, and F are collinear points because they all lie on the line K. Okay, so non-collinear points are points that do not lie on the same line. As this picture shows, you've got 2 points, X and Y, that are collinear. But those 3 altogether, including W, are non-collinear. Okay, no line can contain all 3 of them. And then we have concurrent lines. They are lines that intersect at a single point. So lines A, B, and C are concurrent lines because they intersect at point P. Coplanar points are points that lie on the same plane. Okay, they are on plane Q in this slide. Coplanar lines are lines that lie in the same plane. So even though these aren't parallel, they intersect, they are still on the same plane. Now parallel lines are also coplanar, but they do not intersect. And then here is the notation for parallel. I think we learned this in algebra, but just a refresher, the symbol is like a double bar, and it means is parallel to. So L is parallel to M. Now skew lines are lines that are not coplanar. Okay, so L and M are skew. Okay, we don't say they're non-coplanar, that's not a word, they're skew. Parallel planes are planes that never intersect. So plane K and plane S are parallel to each other. Okay, in the last 2 building blocks, I just sort of skimmed over them, postulate and theorem. Okay, a statement that can be shown to be true by logical progression of previous terms and definitions is called a theorem. Okay, and we are going to be proving theorems later on in geometry. with what's called proofs, okay, and postulates, which are statements that are assumed to be true because they are logical. But you don't prove postulates, you prove theorems with definitions, postulates, and previous theorems. So even though postulates are an assumed relationship, like seen in the world, you can't add to that relationship. It has to be obvious enough that people readily accept it as true. Okay, we're going to do an example of how something we can relate with all of these ideas put together in one skeleton. So if I said to you, here are 3 undefined terms: puppy, dog, and mammal. Now I know that they can be defined, but for just the sake of an argument, okay, we're going to make a logical argument. We're going to say these are undefined terms. So some postulates might be: dogs are mammals, dogs bear live young called puppies, and all mammals nurse their young. So given those terms and those postulates, we could prove that dogs nurse their puppies because mammals nurse their young and dogs are mammals, and we have undefined terms of mammal and dogs. Now, some mammals bear live young. So we can say that puppies, because they bear live young, are mammals. We know at least some. We can't prove all because we can only prove dogs do. Okay, we could also add that, let me give you another definition. We'll say poodles. Poodles are dogs. So there's another definition. With that, just that one definition, we can say poodles are mammals. We can say poodles bear live young called puppies. We can also say poodles nurse their puppies. So just with one definition, you can come up with theorems based on postulates that we know. So I know that might seem a little bit confusing to you, and we'll talk more about this in the classroom. So if you have questions, though, this would be part of your WSQ. Your WSQ summary is to classify each one of these 5 things as either coplanar or skew. And then submit that to me at geometrywithkirk@gmail.com, and I'll see you in class.